Welcome to CMS and You. I'm your host, Suzanne Gallagher. The holiday season is a busy time for most. There's so much to do, attend, and plan, which can bring up feelings of being overwhelmed, anxious, stressed, and depressed. Conversely, this is also a time where people may feel acutely aware of the void left by the loss of a loved one and their own personal loneliness. On today's program, we at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the federal agency that administers Medicare and oversees Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program, as well as the health insurance marketplace, will focus on maintaining mental wellness during the holiday season. I would like to welcome my guest, Douglas Brooks, from Community Counseling and Mediation, where he is the director of Ruby's Place, a supportive housing facility serving 71 adults with some form of disability here in New York City. Community Counseling and Mediation is a leading Brooklyn-based behavioral health organization committed to addressing the root causes and problems associated with mental illness and substance and alcohol abuse. He is also working on the development of Beverly's Place, a 70-unit facility to serve individual, couples, and families suffering from mental illness and other disabilities. Doug is also a professor at NYU Silver School of Social Work. Doug, welcome to CMS and You. We are so glad to have you on the show today.
Oh, and I thank you very much, Suzanne. This is a very important topic for us to discuss, so I thank you for the invite.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. To start with the weather changing and the holidays approaching, we hear the term, or we start to hear this term, seasonal affective disorder, more and more often. Could you explain to our viewers what exactly is seasonal affective disorder?
Sure, and I'll first say that many researchers cannot specifically define what that is, but in general, what we agree with is seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, happens basically every year at the same time each year. The primary cause is with the fall and the winter season, sunlight is diminished. It gets darker a lot earlier, and we're not exposed to enough sunlight, and that actually affects our serotonin levels, which then affects our mood levels. So when it's a little bit darker, we're not exposed to the sunlight, some people naturally just become a little bit more depressed.
Okay, and since we just went through the recent time change,
Correct.
It's getting darker a lot earlier outside now than
Correct.
it used to.
Yes, but also at the same time, it's a little bit lighter in the mornings. So, I would always suggest for people to maybe wake up a little bit earlier while there's a little bit of sunlight. Maybe just take a nice little walk. Yes, it can be cold, but we can wear a coat. But definitely just taking a simple walk or doing something outdoors, exposing us to sunlight and daylight is probably the best thing that we can do. Okay,
and who can be affected? Can certain people more than most, or is it just across the board?
No, it's totally across the board. Seasonal affective disorder does not discriminate whether you're rich, poor, black, white, or anything in between. It could affect anybody.
Okay.
Probably the one difference, though, if people do have resources where they can just take an extra half hour during lunch and walk around the block or do specific outdoor activities or other hobbies, they may have a better chance of just addressing this issue than for those who are I guess more vulnerable or more at risk. Maybe they don't have the resources. They could be low income and they can't tell their employer, hey, I need an extra 20 minutes so I could get some sunlight. So it could affect people who may not have the resources a little bit more than those who may.
Okay. And for people who may not have the resources, why is this time of year so stressful, not for them, but also for so many other people? As
well, first, as I said, seasonal affective disorder happens normally every year around the same time of year due to the lack of sunlight. But to make matters even more complicated is that we have our holiday seasons that are coming up, and dealing with holidays should be a joyous occasion. It should be a time where we reconnect with family or friends. But again, not everyone may have a healthy relationship with their family or friends, or maybe they could have experienced the loss of a loved one, so that would just make things even more complicated.
I mean, I know personally I've experienced a loss like that. So for me, even 6 years later, I do find the holidays a particularly challenging time of year.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. And it may not be just loss, too. I mean, our divorce and separation rates still continue to be very high. Just, a change of family status. For myself, I have two lovely daughters, and they're both in college, and one's in California, the other's in Pittsburgh. And it's like, here, I'm by myself.
Aw.
It's a good thing to
Yeah.
be celebrated, but it could also be challenging during the holiday season, if we may find ourselves alone.
What are some tools or coping mechanisms that we can kind of use to deal with being alone, and what comes with that extra stress?
Sure. So I would say for the general public, the best thing is to try to engage and connect with people. Think, do you have any hobbies? Do you have any interest? Maybe, it could be taking a dance class. Maybe it's just walking a little bit more. And one trick, and actually I used it this morning, is I would tell people maybe get off your train stop or bus stop, a stop earlier or a stop later. Earlier is probably best. And just maybe walk the extra 5 or 10 minutes. And sometimes just that walk outdoors could really help elevate your mood. And in terms of staying connected, this is, again, New York City. It's a great city. It's really diverse, a lot of people, a lot of things to do. But at the same time, it could also feel overwhelming for those who may be going through the seasonal affective disorder. So New York City could also be a lonely place. So, I would suggest for people to try to be as connected as what they can. Just going outside, maybe going to a restaurant, going to a coffee shop, going to a library, just going window shopping could be a great thing to help elevate someone's mood.
I like how you said to be connected, to actually go outside. A lot of times when we now hear being connected, we associate that with some form of social media and connecting with people through that way.
Yeah, and actually I was thinking about this earlier. I mean, social media, it's a new tool. It could be great, but also at the same time, it can cause a lot of stress. People just may feel connected via social media, not recognize, hey, there's a person right across from them who's smiling at them and maybe wants to engage, and they kind of miss all of that. And also, I think one of the challenges with social media is that, people, particularly during the holiday season, may tend to post a lot of things. Hey, look what I got, or look at what I'm going to get, or having photos of their families. And it's great to celebrate some of the good things, but it's also being a little bit mindful that maybe some of your colleagues or coworkers or friends or neighbors may be by themselves, and while you're bragging and showing these pictures, they may have different feelings, and but they won't express them. So social media, it's great. Maybe you can get reconnected with a friend from high school or elementary school or from your church or synagogue. But at the same time, we just need a little bit of mindfulness, and things could be a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a very important tip to remember, definitely. What about those who are going through their first holiday season after the passing of a loved one? Anything specific?
Yeah, I know it can be very challenging, and particularly, when we associate the holiday season with family, with friends, when there is a loss, how do we really deal with it? I would just say to people, it's okay to tell someone, hey, I may need some help, or hey, I may need some support. Let's go out, let's, do something, let's find a way to celebrate our lives rather than, think about our losses. So it's a balance. We do want to respect those who we have lost, but at the same time, let's try to find a way that we could also celebrate life and celebrate each other and stay connected.
And that's a really good way you mentioned about helping a close friend or family member who's experiencing this for the first time, reaching out to them instead of waiting for them to reach out to you because perhaps they're not comfortable or maybe they're embarrassed or they're just too sad to do it. I know personally I was much more willing to accept someone's invitation when they, offered something to me directly as opposed to me feeling comfortable enough to call them up and ask to do something.
Yeah, so I would definitely agree. Instead of just sending out a mass mailing or a mass electronic invite to say, hey, come, we're having a party, maybe just picking up the phone and saying, hey, we're doing something, come on over, and pose it in a way that you're not really asking, but just saying, no, come, it's okay, it's safe, we can have a good time.
Because I know you tend to feel a little isolated from everyone since this is, you're kind of finding your way in what's almost a new normal. So knowing that that someone wants to include you, it means it goes a really long way, and it definitely helps.
Yeah, and I would say that it's definitely, again, like two issues that we're talking about. The first was seasonal affective disorder. It is actually a mood disorder. People are depressed, and some of the symptoms could include wanting to feel more isolated, wanting to sleep more. You may eat a little bit more, and thus you may put on some weight, and that could then affect your self-esteem. So these are natural feelings that someone may experience. And then when you add the holidays on top of it, so it's like we have to do double the work. Let's be maybe a little bit more assertive and say, hey, no, I'm not going to just anticipate this person's going to come to my event or be connected. I need to just reach out. And, when people reach out, most of the time there's going to be a positive response. So I think that's something that we could always do a little bit more of.
Definitely. For many people, this may be the first time that they've seen their family in the entire year. You mentioned that your daughters, one is in Pittsburgh and one is in California, so they're not here on a daily basis with you. And not in your case, but first, that could be stressful too for people that don't see their family members on a regular basis. Or sometimes you're not particularly on good terms with someone in your family for whatever reason. How should those people proceed?
All right, so I would first say, particularly during the Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever you may celebrate, I would always recommend to limit the alcohol. You need to start there. And it's also for clinical reasons, because if someone is experiencing seasonal affective disorder and they're naturally feeling depressed, well, alcohol is a depressant, and you don't want to add a depressant on top of someone who, may be temporarily depressed during this season. So I would say, number one, limit the alcohol intake. If you can drink grape juice or ginger ale, that's even better, or water. And then number two, it's, one of the great messages around the holiday season is about family and togetherness and forgiveness. And, maybe it's not the time to bring up something that has been bothering you for 10 or 12 years, and you have to address it this day because you feel like you may not see this person again for another 5 years. Forgiveness is a great healing tool. And, you know, if we could forgive ourselves, if we could forgive others, it would always make the holiday season a little bit more manageable.
We also, in addition to family members, a lot of us have coworkers or colleagues that may be going through something. What is the best way to support those people, especially ones that maybe have relocated for work and don't have friends or don't have family in the area and maybe haven't met a lot of new people yet to establish new friendships, or just people in general that we may know, like you had said, through our church or a synagogue or other places of worship that may feel isolated or left out?
Yeah, I would say if we could just increase our mindfulness.
Okay.
I have enough confidence with us in a sense of humanity that we're going to do the right thing. But if we're just a little bit mindful to think, hey, we're all going out after work, but let's include everybody. You know, let's just not assume that, oh, well, so-and-so never goes out with us, and you know, just say, no, come on, let's go. You know, I would definitely, you know, as an executive, speak to my staff to say, how could we really be more inclusive? You know, how could we, you know, celebrate our diversity, celebrate our differences, and you know, make this season, you know, more meaningful. So I would just say if we're a little bit more mindful about our environment and not just thinking about me, then things could be a little bit better. You know, and actually, you know, the holiday season is more about giving, you know, than it is receiving. So if we can just challenge ourselves to just, you know, give a little bit extra, give a little bit more, and don't have expectations about receiving anything, we'll be okay.
That is true. Often giving is so much more rewarding than receiving.
Yeah.
And the more that you do it, the easier it becomes to just kind of make it a natural part of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you, for our viewers that are watching and maybe may think, oh, this sort of sounds like me, maybe I have seasonal affective disorder, or you know what, I'm really not looking forward to the holiday season as much as I should be or as much as I have in the past, where could those people go for help?
Sure. Yeah, there's plenty of places to seek help. I would always just start with maybe calling 311. You know, if you don't have friends, if you don't have family, if you really don't know who can I call, you could just call 311. And I know New York City is very responsive to meeting the needs of all New Yorkers. So yeah, that would always be my first suggestion. There's also several great charities, you know, nonprofit agencies, social service agencies that are there to just support the community. With, you know, community counseling and mediation, the agency I've been with for many years, one of them. You know, most agencies, if you just come right in, we'll find a way to service you.
Okay. And for those who live in the New York City area and would call 311, would they be able to refer them to an agency or somewhere in their area that they could go to?
Oh yes, yes. Okay. And I would definitely commend New York City's First Lady, who is really in touch with mental health services and just the need of mental wellness for all of New Yorkers. So yeah, if you call that number, they have folks that could direct you to places within your community, places that speak your same language, places that, you know, you could somewhat identify with culturally. So it's, I think a really great service.
Yeah, someone that you would be comfortable with, definitely. And that's very important because a lot of, you know, cultures may have some kind of a stigma associated with, you know, mental illness. And I think at one point the whole topic of mental illness was almost taboo and no one talked about it. But now, you know, things have just really progressed, and it's
Yeah.
become kind of like a mainstream,
Yeah.
topic that
Yeah.
then there's a lot of media coverage about it. So
Yeah, and actually, I had a former client of mine who didn't like that term mental illness, and we were like, no, we'll call it mental wellness.
okay.
And if you think about it in terms of wellness, I mean, the issue is still the issue, but you're a little bit more optimistic, a little bit more hopeful
Okay.
using that type of term. So, yeah, I try to use it as much as I can.
No, that's very important. Medicare, Medicaid, and most private health insurance will cover mental health services, but what about people who may be uninsured? Are there services available that they could obtain?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
There's, again, many social service agencies and charities throughout the tri-state area that are funded by the government. So the costs are basically very low or none. Those costs are supported by our taxpayer dollars. So if someone cannot afford services, there's still plenty of places that are available to provide those services for them.
Okay, and again, if for those in the New York City area, you could call 311
Correct.
and they would put you in touch with, hopefully,
Correct.
somewhere. Great. And kind of just circling back a little bit,
Sure.
do you have any tips for encouraging friends and family to overcome any kind of social stigma or cultural barrier that they may feel that would bar them for seeking out access and care to these kinds of services?
Well, yeah, in terms of the stigma and some of the cultural barriers, as we discussed earlier, seasonal affective disorder is really generated due to the lack of sunlight.
Okay.
And sunlight doesn't know if you're black or brown or anything in between. It's just a lack of sunlight. And so it could affect any of us. Being mindful and being supportive of our fellow, man and woman is the best thing that we can do.
Okay.
To try to use someone being depressed for your own gain is really, it's not cool, it's not right. No. And particularly during the holiday season, we can do better if we support each other. So, I always would tell my clients, tell my staff that, being a little bit more patient, being a little bit more tolerant is always the best solution. And if I could, also add,
Sure.
as an executive, I've been doing this work for over 28 years. But for those who are professionals, sometimes we may even, lose our focus and be a little bit short with some of our clients or consumers who are experiencing this. And I don't think it's fair to kind of victimize people twice. They come to us seeking services, they need supports, and this season may be even more challenging. So for us to, we need to just be more patient, be more tolerant, try to create more opportunities, be a little bit more encouraging. That could always go a long way for all of us providers. So definitely, again, thank you for having me. And this is a very important topic, and I definitely, think that with all the commercialism that happens around the holiday season, for us to just, remain hopeful and think this is a time of giving, it should be a time of support. And I think that's the message that we should carry throughout the season.
Absolutely. And on that note, today we learned a great deal about dealing with seasonal stress and the importance of identifying the need in yourself and in your friends and family that may need extra support this time of year. I'd like to thank my guest again, Douglas Brooks, for joining me today and providing such incredibly valuable information along with his insights on mental wellness. Education, along with family and community support, plays a key part in encouraging us to take better care of ourselves by seeking out mental health services. Remember, supporting a loved one who is experiencing holiday depression, anxiety, or stress can be difficult. You may not understand why your loved one feels or acts a certain way. Some people who experience this feel like they have to do things a certain way or avoid things or situations, and this can create frustration or conflict with others. Support can be a delicate balance, but there is help out there and available regardless of whether you have Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, or are uninsured. Mental health support is covered through Medicare, Medicaid, the health insurance marketplace, and most insurance plans. You can check with your primary care provider or call your insurance company or managed care plan directly to determine what coverage you have. For more information on Medicare mental health services available in your community, you can call 1-800-MEDICARE. We are available 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, or check out our website at www.medicare.gov. For more information on what Medicaid services are provided in your area, please call your state's Medicaid office or visit their website or ours at www.medicaid.gov. We'd also like to provide a final reminder to all of our viewers that the open enrollment period for Medicare runs from October 15th through December 7th. December 15th is the last day you can sign up for coverage through the health insurance marketplace or the New York State of Health if you need it to start in January of 2019. Until next time, be well and stay well. Thank you so much, Doug.
Oh, you're welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Nolly, and this is Marketplace Matters. If you're enrolled in a Marketplace plan, your insurance company sends out a letter notifying you of any changes in your policy each fall. It's important to review that letter because if your plan no longer meets your needs, you'll have a chance to change it during the open enrollment period. Here are some things to look for. Is your provider still in your plan's network? Are your prescriptions still covered? Have your cost or covered services changed? Is your personal information correct, such as your income and household size? If you have life changes, report those changes to the Marketplace anytime to make sure you're getting the right amount of tax credit and other cost savings for which you may be eligible. This is true if you want to stay in the same plan or pick a new one. If you're not sure whether your current plan is still your best option, you can log on to healthcare.gov and view all plans available to you. Even if you're happy with your plan changes, it's still being offered next year and you don't have any life changes to report, you should still take a look at the health plans being offered in your area. You might benefit from considering a change and you never know until you compare. Plus, healthcare.gov has tools and features to help you compare the plans that are available to you. Your insurance company might decide not to offer your current plan next year. If that's the case, they might suggest another plan that's similar. Remember, you always have the option to look at other plans, even plans that are offered outside the Marketplace. But be aware that only Marketplace plans offer tax credits that could lower your costs. To see your health coverage options, log on to healthcare.gov. If you want to change your policy, remember these dates. Open enrollment starts November 1st and runs through December 15th. Mark your calendars. That is your window to act if you want coverage for next year or if you want to change your existing coverage. Don't forget, when the Marketplace or your insurance company sends you information, read it carefully and make note of the important deadlines. For more information about staying enrolled through the Marketplace, visit healthcare.gov or contact your insurer. And remember the dates.